Hey guys, it's Ryan here from Blockchain Markets, and today I'm with Jordan Earls, lead developer and co-founder at Qtum. So welcome, Jordan, and thank you for taking the time to talking about Qtum.
All right, thanks for having me.
Sure. So before we start, Jordan, I'd like to ask you if you can introduce yourself, so for people that don't know you.
Yeah, so I'm Jordan Earls, co-founder, lead developer of Qtum. I'm a self-taught programmer, basically. Taught myself to program at age 13. I kind of got into the whole Bitcoin space whenever Dogecoin was becoming a thing, and kind of made a name for myself in that whole community by reviewing different cryptocurrencies and blockchain projects, and basically finding like scams and exploits and things like that, and reporting it to the community and exchanges and all that. And then I joined Qtum in 2016, and have been basically leading the development and everything, and like the technical design of it all.
Cool, interesting.
Yeah, and just for a quick 5-second introduction to Qtum, it's a smart contract platform built on top of an independent blockchain, kind of like Ethereum, but we have a focus on mobile and IoT use cases. Yeah.
Cool. Great. So just before we jump into Qtum itself, I think it's also interesting if we discuss I think one part when I was doing the research for the interview, I read that you did that you researched more than 100 different altcoins. So I thought that it would be also interesting to discuss that before we jump into Qtum, because I think that you might have also see a lot of patterns after I have that also when I review coins, and I go through many different, then you start seeing some things that repeat so I think that if you can share with us what are your main takeaways from that experience.
So that experience taught me it taught me a lot. So I kind of got started into it because there's a project that was announced called, I think, like Magic Coin or something like that, and the person who made it said, oh, there's an exploit in it, there's like a problem with this code, but everyone's gonna mine it and buy it and put it on exchanges anyway. And they did. but I looked through the code and everything and found the exploit, and then like the people who made it was like, oh, that's not really an exploit, it's just me being able to steal money or something. But either way, but that really gave me a big introduction into I guess how objective you need to be in reviewing some of that stuff, because everyone has their own bias, and I attempted to be fairly unbiased in how I did things, since I was just looking at code, and code either works or it doesn't. But I still learned a lot as far as basically coming to terms that, oh, I thought I was an expert, but no, I there's so many things that I don't know. And I think one of the last coins I reviewed, I actually was called a pharma coin, and I actually reviewed it 3 times because it had all these suspicious markers, but I could never find a problem. But in the 3rd review, I finally had to write code and compare what the wallet was making comparing to the code I expected or whatever, and basically finally found some exploit basically making it to where if you knew about this certain feature or whatever, you could mine it at a faster rate than other people. And that was probably the last one, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm getting too old for this or something, too much stress. It was the community was just breathing down my neck, we know there's a problem with it, why are you saying there's not a problem? It's just I can't find the problem. but yeah, I mean, but the whole thing, like, it was really interesting and taught me a lot. Like, reviewing so many different cryptocurrencies and stuff. There's so many different paradigms that people use and everything. So it taught me how to read code faster and more efficiently, for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that you might have seen also a lot of being able to just spot immediately something that was a bit fishy, or something that you can see it at the beginning if it's a scam, or after a while, after just reviewing several.
Yeah.
So now moving forward, like more to Qtum, then I think that then after reading, after doing all those reviews, you also learn a lot. You said you were also part of can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, perfect. So you said that you did that as a learning process, and then what do you think about Qtum, that you thought okay, this is a project that I would really like to join? Also, that this is something really different from what I've seen.
Yeah. So I guess it's probably best to like describe from the very beginning, like how me and Patrick, one of the other co-founders, met. And so I was like, I remember vividly. I was like helping my wife cook and stuff in the kitchen, and I got a message from one of our mutual friends. Basically, I knew him from like my core interview days. He like did like some mining pool stuff and all that, but and he basically was like, "Hey, I got a project for you." This guy is like really ambitious, wants to combine all these different aspects, and he's based in China. And I was like, oh, I mean, like this was like 2016, like still in the deep of like crypto winter, basically.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I remember telling my wife, I was like, oh, I got a call about some Chinese project. It sounds like a scam, but I'm gonna go ahead and see what it is anyway. But from there, like, I talked to Patrick like for weeks, and kind of like understood like his vision of combining basically the 5-second version was he wanted to combine proof of stake and the EVM, or Ethereum Virtual Machine, and then Bitcoin's UTXO transaction model, and basically do all that so that you have like better mobile and IoT stuff, like easier to use smart contracts in that kind of environment. And after I finally like got it, like it clicked in my head, then the hard part came of like, how do you actually design a system that does all this stuff, like combines all these aspects that have never been combined before in this way. So it was very, very interesting, like coming up with the technical design and everything. And it was difficult. I had doubts at a few points, but overall it was like really fun. And, and we had like a great team that was like helping and everything. And Patrick himself is like, he's a really good, like visionary kind of person. So he has like that vision of like where it needs to go. And basically it's like a big asset for a co-founder, I think.
Yeah. I think that's crucial, because also that helps a lot the tech team to just stay focused in the roadmap and then know exactly where you're going.
Yeah. So I mean, and then we kind of did the whole technical design and went and finally completed it and everything, and did the crowd sale and all that, and here we are.
Cool. And then the crowd sale was last year, somewhere in March, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it was last March.
Cool. And so how did if you can walk us through like quickly on after the crowd sale, what happened in the Q2, Q3, and Q4 of 2017, and then we can jump now to where you guys are at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, the crowd sale. So first we did like basically $1 million in angel funding that kind of got us off the ground. Was able to let us like prepare a prototype basically, and to prepare for the crowd sale. And then the crowd sale in March of 2017, we raised it was like $15.6 million at the time. And of course, that was all in like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and done on like different exchanges. There's like 4 different exchanges, I think. And but so that like amount of Bitcoin and everything is of course worth more now. But at the time, it was like we had serious doubts of that, like if we were going to be able to actually raise $15 million, because like it still felt pretty cold, like as far as like the environment of crypto and everything. And this was before like the whole ICO craze of 2017.
Yeah.
Like we were like one of the first big ones that actually like pulled it off and succeeded, and raised like our target. And then I think like after us, there's like a few other projects, and then as it became I think around May and June, it like just heated up to insane levels as far as like every project going to ICO and all that. But the crowd sale sold out in I think it was like about 3.5 days, and you know, it was a stressful time for sure. But I mean, we did everything, and also was able to like release a prototype even before the crowd sale, and I think that really helped to reassure people that, hey, we're not just like a white paper project, you know, we're like we have like serious stuff happening behind the scenes. But yeah.
Cool. So then you guys started to work on that testnet, then came the mainnet as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so we had 2 test nets, and then our mainnet release was in September.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we didn't have any kind of problems with either testnet, like any major problems at least. And then the mainnet release went really smoothly. We actually released, I think it was like 3 days early, like earlier than expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've had no like security issues or anything like that. And today we have like over 50 different decentralized apps and everything building on our platform, and you know, more being added every day. Like I can't name them all because there's just too many at this point. And then there's people, you know, like projects and stuff having their own crowd sales on top of Qtum. So it's pretty interesting to see the ecosystem start to like, you know, develop and come together and everything just a few months after the mainnet launch.
Yeah, exactly. That's the part that it becomes like super interesting when it becomes a reality, and then others are just building on top of your platform and raising capital on your platform. One thing that I think that you mentioned briefly at the beginning that maybe we can discuss in a bit more depth is this hybrid quality that Qtum has. I think that's interesting and sets Qtum apart from other projects. For people that are seeing this that don't know, but maybe it's better if you explain it. But basically, Qtum is doing a hybrid between Bitcoin and Ethereum with a POS consensus. If you can elaborate a bit more on that, Jordan?
Yeah. So, without getting into the weeds too much, basically we have a blockchain that resembles Bitcoin for most intents and purposes. Like, you know, it uses like the whole UTXO, you have change addresses, all that kind of like complicated details that like the wallets and stuff have to deal with. And but on top of that, we basically have built what we call an account abstraction layer. And basically that takes all that complexity of the underlying blockchain and abstracts it away to where like these smart contracts and stuff, they only have to know, oh, I have a balance, I can send coins and I can receive coins. There's no other details that I need to worry about. And that's the model that Ethereum uses, the account model. And so basically we've abstracted away all the complexity of the underlying blockchain so that we can use these much simpler smart contract paradigms. And so that allows us, like right now we have the Ethereum Virtual Machine implemented on top of that. So that means you can run like Solidity smart contracts, but on the underlying blockchain, it looks a whole lot like Bitcoin. So that's pretty interesting and allows us to use like the FPV protocol that Bitcoin has for light wallets with smart contracts. But also, I mean, we didn't design this only to support the Ethereum Virtual Machine. So our future direction is actually implementing another virtual machine on top of it called the x86 Virtual Machine. And the point of that is basically to allow people to write smart contracts in like C++ or Rust or Go or Python or like programming language people actually know.
Yeah.
Without having to like, learn something new. And but so because we've like abstracted away how that underlying blockchain works, like it's much easier to make upgrades to that underlying blockchain and also to add on more virtual machines on top. And like for enterprise, this is especially useful because enterprise people might have their own private version of Qtum, and they might need their own private virtual machine for, I don't know, their accounting or whatever kind of system they have that needs to be tuned exactly to like exactly what they need rather than some one size fits all solution.
Yeah.
And so, but the main takeaway from all that is basically being able to use this FPV light wallet protocol for interacting with smart contracts. And doing it from mobile and IoT devices, devices that can't do a full node and everything.
Cool. Yeah, that's something interesting. Now, I was thinking, meanwhile, you were talking about the different languages that you're planning to support. I think that's also key because you guys are also focusing in trying to make a public blockchain for the enterprise.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's key for them, so then their developers don't have to learn Solidity, and they can use the languages like they know, like C++ and others.
And for enterprise especially, like it's especially useful to be able to use like C++ and common APIs that have already been around and have existed for decades or whatever, because they can basically take their, like for instance, maybe they have some kind of batch data process or something. They can actually take that C++ code that was written maybe in, I don't know, the 90s or something, and actually run it as a smart contract without having to completely rewrite it. They might have to make some modifications, like, minor stuff. But the idea is that they don't have to rewrite their entire logic and business process and everything in order to put it into smart contracts and put it onto the blockchain.
Yeah, it's a huge time saver.
Yeah.
And so then the other thing that you mentioned as well is that you're focusing on enabling developers to make dApps, especially for mobiles. Why did you decide to go for mobiles? Yeah, it makes sense, but I have to ask it anyway.
Yeah. No. So one of the aspects that kind of came out of us having such a distributed team is that we have a lot of insight into China because we have a lot of people there. So in China, there's everyone uses like, the internet and everything, but hardly anyone has a laptop. Everyone just uses their phone for everything, like paying bills, writing documents, anything. Like it's pretty crazy to me to see it really, because it's like such a, well, I don't know, foreign concept, I guess, of, like being able to actually write things on a phone, but because of their Pinion keyboard and everything, it's like actually really easy and cool. But anyway, so everyone has like only a phone there, and right now, like with Ethereum and everything, it's not easy to like deploy a smart contract from your phone. It's not easy to even use a smart contract from your phone.
Yeah.
So basically, our like goal with doing Qtum and everything and was basically bringing these smart contracts to phones, but not just like, for people to be able to build apps for them, but also to have like even like a decentralized app store basically where you could have like some coffee shop owner. They want to do like a loyalty token system on the blockchain. They can basically browse the App Store and basically see, okay, this one looks okay, and it costs, I don't know, 1 Qtum to use. So I'll use this one, type in some parameters of how many tokens or whatever, and then hit deploy, and you have your own smart contract and dApp and everything. And you didn't have to touch a laptop for anything, and you can administer it and everything from your phone. So that was kind of like the driving vision behind it all. And then and of course, like branching out into like IoT and that kind of space, we actually have like today you can actually stake Qtum from a Raspberry Pi, which is like, kind of borderline not an IoT device because it has a lot more resources than most, but like still like we have that like smaller footprint and everything. So it's like a really exciting to kind of see it coming together, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting to know as well. Now that moving forward, you mentioned also that I'd like to discuss also then the Ethereum Virtual Machine, and then you mentioned also that you're planning to release your own virtual machine, I guess, later this year.
Yeah.
If you can talk a bit about that, and why did you decide to do the to migrate to more to your own virtual machine, and then what are what's the plus for developers that would use that virtual machine?
So the big reason for doing it is basically because we want to be able to bring like C++, Go, all these common programming languages to smart contracts, but also like the way that some other projects are doing this, like Ethereum and everything, is like WASM, the WebAssembly virtual machine. But we like looked a lot at that and evaluated it, and we don't really consider it like production ready yet. I think it'll be really exciting like in a year or two, but it's not like all the tooling and everything behind it is still like alpha or beta quality, and the specification itself isn't even like complete. So anyway, we basically decided like, okay, this isn't like good enough for us yet. Like later it probably will be, but right now we need to find a different route. Because we don't want to be trusting hundreds of millions of dollars to a compiler that's labeled beta. Like it's just not safe.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically what we're doing with the whole x86 VM, for reference, like x86, that's like the architecture that your MacBook uses or your PC uses. So it's like an actual physical chip processor that, has been around since like the 70s. And so basically we decided to take that architecture and emulate it basically on the blockchain. And the benefit of doing this basically is that it's already like a problem that has been solved many times. Like, there's Hyper-V, there's VMware, there's VirtualBox, all these different virtualization technologies for x86. And basically we were able to use like a subset of it to make everything even simpler. And so the whole idea behind it is basically being able to take these existing tools, existing compilers, existing like formal analysis, static analysis tools, and allow you to use them with smart contracts and using this common architecture that's been supported since the 70s, rather than some brand new architecture that's still being built. And so this makes it to where it's really easy for us to support different compilers, different programming languages, because we can basically like we have a custom like Qtum operating system, and it's basically like the difference between running like C++ code on like Windows compared to Linux. And so instead of like the comparison, you have it like running on Qtum operating system, but it's using like the same CPU instructions, all that technical detail. So it allows us to do things a lot quicker, and allows us to build up from all this existing tooling a lot faster than would otherwise be possible with like WebAssembly or something like that. And then we also have like our own innovations kind of going into that as well. So like very short lived, we'll have like censorship proof, FPV proof, like that's a loaded, complicated term, but a really exciting way that we're doing the database. And then we'll have it where smart contracts can actually upgrade themselves. In Ethereum right now, you have to do like complicated like forwarder contracts and things like that. And also we'll have a way to basically do precompiled contracts without requiring a hard fork. So like for reference in Ethereum, precompiled contracts is like what they use to add new encryption algorithms, new like the ZK snark stuff that they recently came out with. They did that through precompiled contracts, but they had to like basically force everyone to upgrade, force like a fork. In Qtum, we have a piece called the decentralized governance protocol, and that actually allows us to upgrade certain aspects of the blockchain. And for the whole x86 VM, we'll actually have that whole governance model like integrated into the virtual machine itself, so that we can basically allow people to deploy, like new libraries, new encryption algorithms, things like that, really complicated stuff. And then we can hard code it into wallets and make it fast. And then the decentralized governance protocol can basically reduce the gas cost, where it's like, cheap to use, easy to use, and everything for smart contract developers. I don't want to get too much into detail, but
now that you, no, it's okay. Actually, I wanted to discuss that, especially now that you mentioned smart contract developers. I was thinking, can you say, like, let's pretend you're talking to an audience of developers that are thinking in developing a smart contract or a decentralized app, and then they're looking for different blockchains. At the moment, of course, the majority are on Ethereum. So then let's pretend that they're looking for Ethereum. What would be your pitch to those developers? Why should they consider in a few bullet points moving to Qtum, or just deciding to go for using Qtum as a platform to develop?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few different aspects for right now, basically, without the whole new x86 virtual machine, like not done yet. So for right now, though, we have like a strong focus on like mobile and IoT. So if you're building like a DApp and such that needs to like interact with those kind of devices, then Qtum is probably like something you should be looking pretty closely at. And also even beyond that, because we have that whole decentralized governance protocol piece, we can actually like scale the blockchain much more easily than Ethereum. And also we've been out since September and haven't needed to make a fork or anything like that. Actually, no, we had to make like one minor hard fork for a security issue, but like we don't have like forks coming every 3 months like how Ethereum tends to do things. And so our motto kind of is like basically the blockchain ready for business. Like we're not treating ourselves as a research project that's going to break how your business works every 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is. We're trying to basically fork as little as possible, stay as stable as possible, using only like proven technology. And basically, of course, we have our own research happening in the background and everything, but we're not going to just deploy like experimental technology and see if it works, basically, and potentially break the blockchain or anything like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, with the decentralized governance protocol, though, we can also scale and respond to attacks a lot quicker. Because, for instance, if all the blocks are being full, like the block size debate in Bitcoin, we can actually have like governing parties that come together and vote for a block size increase. And if it passes, then that becomes active, and the block size is bigger. Like there's no fork needed. No one has to download new software. It just works. And so like having that kind of stability and, being able to avoid those simple forks, I think is like a really big asset that we bring to the table. especially for, where you're deploying these wallets and things like that to devices that you might not be able to update on a timely basis. Like, you might only get access to some tracking device inside of a shipping container every 3 months or something. So like basically we want to be like, the most stable blockchain platform while still having plenty of features.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's also crucial for enterprises as well, when you think that those guys take decisions based on risk analysis. Yeah. So then the more parts of the technology that they know, like you mentioned before, that they're familiar with, and then they know that there won't be many changes in terms of hard forks, for example. Yeah. It lowers the risk for them to adopt it. So yeah, really interesting stuff. Yeah.
And also, like we're a lot greener than say Ethereum because we're already proof of stake. Like that we launched through proof of stake, and so we've never had to worry about proof of work and all the energy and everything being wasted by that. I think Bitcoin is up to like, what was it, like a whole country of energy being wasted.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I was checking the other day. I think it's like it's like they use more energy than a country like Ecuador, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like we are coming to an end. Jordan, I think that's been really interesting. We went through the main characteristics of Qtum, and also we talked about why it would be interesting for developers, and that it's really focused also for mobiles and IoT. So if you are a developer and then you're looking for developing for mobile and IoT on the blockchain, it's worth a look for you, Qtum.
And later, whenever we have like the x86 VM, we'll have like, if you want to write a language that's not Solidity, then we're a very good option. But
exactly.
Not quite ready yet.
On top of that, it becomes even more interesting because you don't even have to learn a new language. You can just keep on using the language that you.
It opens up the hiring pool to like where you have all these engineers and everything. Like anyone can contribute to your ecosystem now.
Yeah, exactly. Becomes much bigger the ecosystem all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jordan. I don't know if there's anything else you would like to mention, something that we didn't discuss.
No, I think that's it for me.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you all, you guys as well. And then we'll see you in another episode of Blockchain Markets. Cheers. Bye bye.